welcome, Brother Abdul Hakim.
And warm welcome to you also, and to all of our wonderful guests. Thank you, everybody.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
salam.
Thank you, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Minister.
Hey, walaikum salam.
Good to see you, brother. Good to see you, brother, man.
Good to see you too. Good to be seen. Well, I've been given assalamu alaikum. I've been given good evening. What about what? Dreadlocks.
Indeed.
You know, I want to hear from some people in the Caribbean. And some African and Caribbean greetings. Can I get some of that?
Brother. Yes, sir.
All right.
That's right.
All right. The Arabic is nice. The English is nice. But is there any French family in the house? Can I get some French greetings?
Woo! Come on now.
Bonsoir, bonsoir, monsieur. Bonsoir.
Oh, bonsoir, monsieur. Bonsoir. Oh, nice, nice. Anybody else from around the world who wants to give me some greetings in another language? What is it?
Good afternoon.
And that was in Dutch.
Dutch, yes, sir.
Thank you, Gerardo. Thank you.
Ahlan wa sahlan.
Ahlan wa sahlan. Okay. Nice.
Jambo.
From the UAE, all the way from Abu Dhabi. Thank you. Anybody else?
Jambo
Jambo
is hello in Kenyan.
Nice, all the way from Kenya.
You're gonna drop a little Rwandan, brother.
Hey.
From where are you?
Rwanda.
Rwanda on the line and in the house.
Come on now.
Anybody else from a different part of the world?
I can give an Ayo, a what's up, and a konnichiwa from Brooklyn.
Hey, Brooklyn in the house.
Hey.
Okay, so I think we've gone full circle. So warm welcome to you all, and it's indeed always a privilege and a pleasure to be graced with your wonderful presence and to be in your presence. I look so much forward to Thursday evening, you know, like
yes,
we've changed Thursday evening, I think, for forever.
Yeah.
Thursday evening can never be what it once was, because now on a Thursday between 7 and 8:30 GMT, we change lives and we give information that, you know, shapes the destiny of all of those who are on our platform. So thanks to all of you who are online. Thanks to all of you who have sold and distributed tickets. Thanks to each and every one of you. And thanks to my co-host. Today is a very special evening because as we're watching around the world, like members of our family being beaten to death by those in law enforcement, and those of us who live in the United Kingdom, we have heard and the arrest of serving police officers who have raped over 25 women and used their badge and their position to intimidate and to continue a line and a trail of terrorism really, amongst the females of this country, and others who have kidnapped, literally arrested women, made women think they're being arrested and being driven to undisclosed destinations and being raped and murdered. This is what's happening in the United Kingdom and all over the world. So we have heard about, you know, we should never be the aggressor. We must always be those who only respond to aggression. But what does that mean? What does that mean? Someone's got to smack you in the face before you defend yourself. Someone's got to invade your privacy before you can defend yourself. Well, I don't have the answers. I have the questions. So today I've invited the Grand Master, Abdul Aziz Muhammad, otherwise known as Anthony Muhammad. I've invited Abdul Aziz to come and answer these questions. And he has one of his top students with us also, who he will introduce to you. So it gives me tremendous pleasure. And this is a man who I was blessed to meet in New York decades ago now for the first time. And we have been brothers and we have been friends and companions. in the struggle of the freedom and redemption and liberation of our people. So it is with a tremendous honor, tremendous privilege that I'm able to bring him before you so that you can be addressed, not just by a martial artist, but a grand master. So spiritual injection, as you know, the way how we do, take your devices off mute, show your love, show your appreciation for our special guest, Grandmaster Abdul Aziz Muhammad. Please show your love. For Abdul Aziz, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Welcome, brother.
Thank you, Minister, for giving me the opportunity and inviting me on to your show. I believe that, you know, you operate on many different levels, doing so many different things, and I'm grateful to Allah that you're on the side of the weak man. You're on the side of those that have no voice. You're on the side of those that need voice and strength, and I'm thankful that I'm here with you on this show. And what better show for me to be on than a show that's going to be a spiritual injection? I thank you for that. Well, you know, you asked the question, and just to really mention a little about myself, you know, I am a young 64-year-old person who has been in the arts, the martial arts, for over 55 years. And not only have I been in the martial arts, I am a former law enforcement officer, if you will. I was with the New York City Department of Correction. I've worked as an officer, as well as I've taught in the academy, teaching officers how to handle themselves in various situations. So I'm very familiar with some of what was just introduced, but you know, we're dealing with not so much training, we're dealing with character. And the question that was presented was, you know, we are not the aggressor. Well, that is absolutely and 100% the truth. But the question is, when are you aggressed? When is it that you understand that you've been aggressed? Now, aggression does not mean that you have to be hit. Aggression means it's in turns and attitude, their volume, their communication with you, their movement towards you produces the reality that comes afterward. So aggression is not that someone has to hit you. Aggression is really that they just desire to. So we're not the aggressors, nor are we those who accept aggression in any manner. And that's what I'm here to have a talk about. You got me excited over here. I'm you know, I've been trying to get across the pond for a long time to be there at this time, and I'm so grateful to all your guests for bearing with me. I do have a student that's on the line. He is one of my top students. He's someone, though, who has a litany of information of things that we do and have done, and his name is Sandan, which means third-degree black belt, Calvin Muhammad. So we definitely want to introduce him as well on this show. Thank you.
Sir.
Warm welcome, Brother Calvin. Warm welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to have
Welcome, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Yes, sir. So I'm all yours, brother Minister. I'm all yours to go further into it. I definitely want to get into the situation with the law enforcement and the issues that happen. And if you'd like me to just continue, I will do that, or
Please.
Wait for.
So in regards to what we're here to discuss, like self-defense, you know, tell us about your experiences, Grandmaster, and what really compelled you to become a Grandmaster in this particular field? What made you see the importance of us needing to master the ability to protect the precious life that we have been given, and to teach others the value of knowing how to protect their precious lives?
That's a beautiful question. And I have to say, well, it came from me prior to me getting into Muhammad University of Islam. But when my oldest brother began to teach me boxing, we're talking a little time back, I was 6, 7 years old, and my eldest brother, Ronald Muhammad, he thought to want to show me just some boxing. And in that, it was exciting to me. It wasn't formal. It was him just with his little brother and wanting to give me something as a little boy. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that. And I see my life, and I believe that everyone's life is not, it doesn't happen by chance. That everyone is being guided, or in your guidance, you make decisions that lead you in whatever direction you're going in. I believe, for me, that my life has been guided, and that I have accepted the guidance that have been coming to me. I'm not talking about someone just saying to me, go and train, that my spirit has been that type. So what kind of background do I have? It's the kind of background that, when we were coming up, or when I was coming up in my, the streets of New York was not an easy situation. Gangs were present during that time. Clearly, drugs was rampant in the community. This is during that time that they were flooding drugs in the community. So you're not dealing with those who are just criminals. You see, you're dealing with the mind that have been changed and misled and redirected from maybe even being a good person to now a substance that is causing them to act other than themselves. They were not. And when someone is on a drug, you have to know that you're not dealing with a normal individual. You have to look at that to know that you are facing a situation that could go very, very far south. And in that, you have to act accordingly. So in terms of, for me, I came up in a time that was very difficult in the street. And in that, and I'm talking about, I'm a young boy. So, back then, you could move about as a young person all over. This is when we used to play together in the street. This is way before, long before any technology, that kept us from being in the street and moving about on our own. So we played out there. We traveled as young persons out in that street. So we got firsthand knowledge when there was some trouble. You felt it, you understood it. So when I was put into Muhammad University in the 4th grade in New York City, I was put in by my mother, and we did not have basketball, football. We didn't play any of those games. That was called sport and play for us. Yeah. So for me, what I received was what was given to us in the university, and that was boxing. It was martial arts. That's That's our extracurricular activity that we were doing. And I just fell in love with it from one thing to the next and so forth. So I never thought of being a grandmaster. All I thought was training. I loved training until I loved fighting.
Excuse me, sir. Hello, good evening.
Not just in the street, but I enjoyed taking myself to locations, tournaments, to battle to see if what I was being taught made sense and worked. So, you know, so that's some of my upbringing and what led me on my direction in this art of learning to defend yourself.
Fantastic. And with one of your students being on the line, Brother Calvin, would you like to chime in and just give us a flavor of being one of the students of the Grand Master and what attracted you, and also how are you seeing the importance of self-defense being a mandatory skill that we all possess?
Absolutely. And first and foremost, thank you for the honor of joining this show. And of course, it's always an honor to be alongside my teacher, Grandmaster Abdul Aziz Muhammad. And kind of in the same vein, you know, I joined the Nation of Islam at a young age, at 13 years old. And I was a part of one of the street organizations at that age, which, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It was the Gangster Disciples. And when I came to the mosque the first time, the captain can kind of sense the, for lack of a better term, the roughness that I had. And so I was mandated to go to the dojo. It was a dojo down the street from the mosque. And so he gave me permission on the meeting nights. He said, before you come to the meeting, you go down there and you work. And I didn't realize he was trying to take some of that roughness out of me and giving me an outlet. And so I started off in a system called Kempo Goju Karate. And then later I joined a system called Seal Lung Humgar Kung Fu. But it was my first opportunity to actually meet Grandmaster Abdul Aziz Muhammad was at the Million Man March in 1995. I was a part of an assignment that I had an opportunity. I'd heard of him before. I've heard of the professor. I've heard of him before, but I'd never had an opportunity to meet him. And that was my first contact with him. And once I had an opportunity to be around him, we had heard about this event coming up in '96, which was the first national training conference in Chicago. And so me and a couple of other brothers that I trained with, we had made it a point that we were going to go to this event. And it wasn't the national training that, if anybody's familiar with, that you've seen before now, where, you know, you have hundreds upon hundreds of people. We fit in the classroom at that time. But I still had an opportunity to meet his teacher and to some of the top martial artists. And from that point on, I said, I have to absolutely train in this system. And I think one of the things that drew me to Grandmaster Abdul Aziz Muhammad and the system and his teachers was the perspective of self-defense. It wasn't just a tool that you would use to fight. It wasn't just something to work off aggression, but the way that he has presented self-defense to us, it is a natural God-given right. It is a check and balance to the very life that you have. And it is absolutely unnatural for a person not to want to defend and protect the lives that they have. And so with that perspective, you know, even in nature, it was brought to my attention that when we are tending to our lawns and you're cutting the lawns and you get that smell of fresh cut grass, I just learned that wasn't just a smell of fresh cut grass. That is a defense mechanism that the grass puts off to call the insects into play. That's why you have all those flies and everything around. So it is in every living thing, the perspective that was given to me by Grandmaster Abdul Aziz Muhammad and our walk in Islam is that it's not just something that you do just because you want to do, because you want to fight, but it is mandated. It is a God-given assignment for every living being to learn to defend themselves. And so that's in a nutshell.
So that means then, somebody begging another person to be lenient with them or for mercy. How would you classify this? Because when I watch my brother Tyree being literally murdered and for over an hour being tormented, and his attitude, I heard his mother say yesterday, or his sister say yesterday, that even when my brother was being murdered, he was still so dignified. He was asking the policeman, please stop. Please stop. At what point, brothers, do you respond with everything that you have? At what is the trigger point? Because we really need to drill down on this. Like, what is the trigger point that regardless to who's in front of you, that you literally have to go into, end the person mode? Because, Abdulaziz, you teach us how to fight, how to defend the gift. The life is the gift that no one can replace. So to allow someone to take what cannot be replaced, at what point do you teach your students, to as what's the brother's name? I can't remember his name, but he sung a song, "Give it all you got." So tell me, at what point do we arrive at this state?
Add on a little bit. God's gift to us, is the point you were making, or the question that you had asked, in terms of, like when. First of all, if God gave you something, no one else should be able to take what you were given by him. Now, this is the other part to that if you were given something, you are commanded to protect what he gave us.
You're right.
You have to look at it that way. First of all, know that, okay, I'm not allowing anyone to take what he gave me, and I will fight to the end, to the death, to save or protect, I should say. What? Now, when do you change your position? First of all, the question is, what is your perception of who is in front of you?
Right.
See, the perception that you have that is in front of you is someone who you have some regard for, some respect for, some admiration for, some level of exaltation in some kind of way. If you have that in front of you, question is, when do they denounce that position in your mind? See, you would be more apt to defending your life no matter who is in front of you. If you change your perception. See, now you don't have to change your perception. All you have to do is accept the perception or the face that they're giving you. It does not matter that the person has a uniform or not. When that person loses the status in which they stand for, now accept that you are facing possible death. So now, once you get there, all right, now I can say this, like there are techniques, that one can do. There are chokeholds, as we have seen in New York, where they put the chokehold on our brother, and they held him while they were securing his arms and keeping him down. And one individual continued to choke him. Now, brother was big enough to move them all, but he believed with someone that was very much different in his mind than what they demonstrated themselves to be.
That's right.
So this is the problem starts with how we see someone. Now, you know, when we look at someone and we already believing that the individual is someone to be afraid of, you're already on God.
Yeah.
You're ready to move and get away. You're ready to defend yourself because you believe that what you are looking at, even though they may have made the person to appear that way, because you may not have known him, but he's a young black man or something like that, where he has a hoodie on. And just having a hoodie makes you to be an individual that someone should be threatened.
Yeah.
But you never should be threatened by an officer of the law, because they're supposed to uphold the law. But when you find that the law is not being upheld, you have to change your position. Now, I want you to know that, you know, I don't want us to now focus only on law enforcement, because there's so much black on black and all kind of attacks on us. We got to be weary of everyone, in my opinion.
Right.
If I'm a little excited here, but our opinion and our disposition and our thought of that individual is what keeps us from acting in the way that we need to act. You say we treat or should treat one another the way we desire to be treated. So you start off that way until there is a level that goes above that to wanting to harm you, at which point you must defend yourself, even if that causes your life. Look, our brother lost his life and he did nothing to try and protect it.
Right.
He was expecting to be that he was expecting the person or persons, I should say, that was in front of him stood for what he thought in his mind they were to stand for. So it's our own minds that put us in a position to restrain and hold back from protecting your own life. Protect your life at all costs, no matter what. Because if you lose that life, I'd rather lose it knowing that I was attempting to defend myself.
Very good. Very good. So, Brother Calvin, what kind of energy then, as the Grand Master has just said, in changing one's perception, and now you're reading more of a situation than being somewhat compelled by a uniform. Like, once you've reached that point, you know, talk to me about the kind of mind frame that you just got to be in. Like, what kind of energy? Because you can, and one thing I've noticed about the Grand Master can keep a very soft, you know, appearance, and people would never know. You know, we were blessed to have the Grand Master in the UK a couple of years ago. And me and him were walking to a coffee shop. As we're walking to the coffee shop, and there was so many people around in this particular area, I was like, man, if only these people knew who was walking alongside them. So talk to me about the energy, you know, that one can give off to even repel an aggressive mind, the psychological warfare.
Come on, yes, sir.
That is a absolutely wonderful question, and I think it's one that should be explored. There was probably about a decade ago, I was in a class with Grandmaster Abdul Aziz Muhammad, and he was teaching on that concept on self-defense. And if I'm not mistaken, Grandmaster, you had referenced this movie called The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And he had talked about that there are levels of aggression, right? You know, by the time you are assaulted, by the time somebody is physically putting their hands on you, there were many cues before you got to that point And a lot of times when you are aggressed, most of the aggressor's time is spent on them getting the confidence to do it, because like all human beings and like all living organisms, for lack of a better term, they don't want no problems either. And so what they're looking for as
they just want your money
escalate,
and just become right.
exactly. You know, and so what they're looking for when they initially start the aggression, if you talk about somebody who's mugged on the street, you know, if you talk to most of the victims, they'll tell you, I knew something was wrong, you know, because I switched sides of the streets and they switched with me, or I noticed them watching me at the bus stop. There are always cues. But if you fail to act on one of the cues, what you are giving your aggressor is consent to escalate. And so you had mentioned about what is the disposition, or what are some of the vibes? You talked about Grandmaster, and as humble as he is, if you are in his circle, you know that he's a peaceful person, but there's some type of vibe that gives you that this is not necessarily the person that I want to be my mark, so to say. And so in that, when you see those cues, you have to respond in cue and not wait for it to get physical. And going back to Grandmaster's analogy that he gave us in the class, he had mentioned that we fail to properly defend ourselves when we are waiting for the all-out physical attack. But you have to respond, and sometimes that response is not a physical response in the sense of you're swinging on that person, but sometimes you just turn and match the energy at the level of aggression. And like I said, they don't typically want those problems. Now, to go a little bit further, when you're talking about aggression and when you're talking about self-defense and the things that one must do, Grandmaster mentioned something, and I heard it mentioned before, that sometimes we think that defending myself is that I have to win. And if we feel like we cannot win, we cow down and we consent to whatever is taking place. But I don't know if you've ever had, you know, seen like a bumblebee or a wasp. You had maybe in your room, in your home, there was a hornet or a wasp or a bumblebee. As small as that thing is, you still have a degree of trepidation.
Oh, we gone, brother.
And in many degrees, I've seen people leave the room or leave the house and call someone else. Now, physically, we can squash it, right? We can squash that thing with no problem, and the sting that it will put on us, we'll get over it. But when you start to present that there will be the slightest bit of resistance, the slightest bit of discomfort, or whatever ease that you believe this plan is going to be, is not going to be that easy, then it causes the aggressor, who is usually weak-hearted, to cow down and rethink, because their initial thought is that this is going to be easy. And the crux of their control over us, like the crux of the bee's control over us, is the fear. What happens in our mind is often way worse than what could happen in reality if we would respond. But if we continue to give that consent and don't meet that energy and stop it upon the cues, then what happens is what will happen in reality is often a lot worse than what would have happened if we matched it at the origin of the aggression.
Excellent. Robert Grandmaster?
Oh, I love it. It is absolutely an excellent statement from Sister Calvin. And I would say, let's make sure everyone, you know, we suffer from a lack of knowledge, and our lack of knowledge is having the technical skill.
You're right.
Do something. We hesitate. We pause. You're walking across the street and you hear the noise, the car, and you pause and look. You know how much time you're losing? You're looking, you're not operating off of the sound and where it was coming from, that you can just move contrary to the sound. So our pausing causes us the most damage and danger. I'll give one scenario where it was a YouTube piece where a Black woman was sitting at a bus stop. And as she was sitting at the bus stop, she was just there. She was already there waiting for the bus. And there was a group of young girls. Now, rowdy, you know, they were rowdy, making a lot of noise, and they came into the area. Now, I know, I can guarantee you if we asked her, the sister that was sitting there, she probably said in her mind, oh, I'm not gonna bother them, just let them, you know, go ahead and they'll go past, and I'm gonna just continue minding my own business. She was warned by the actual energy and spirit and actions of those young girls that was rowdy and loud and whatnot. And what happened is she stayed there. And by the time they all got over, then one focused on her. Now you're too late.
Right.
You're too late unless you have the capability
Right.
of dealing with multiple attackers. But all she had to do was, you know what, this doesn't even feel right. Let me just, even if I have to walk to the next stop. See, so we cannot hesitate or pause before we do something, even if the something is just moving.
Right. Right.
Yes, sir.
And that is self-defense, right? On a higher level, because you're reading a potential situation and acting in advance. Now, I wanted to speak to you about cowardice, you know, and that natural fear that is bred into many, even by their parents. You know, so many parents, in thinking they're protecting their children, are actually preparing little cowards. So can you speak to that? Because we're no longer in our natural state of mind to be able to protect ourselves on a divine, you know, spiritual level. So therefore now we have to be taught, because the instincts are no longer there. How can we as parents train our children? Because you mentioned, Grandmaster, that your brother saw fit to want to take you to ensure that you had tools, boxing tools, that you advanced into what you are blessed to enjoy today. So how can we ensure that our babies from the cradle, you know, are void of cowardice and equipped with the requisite tools that they need in order to naturally defend self and naturally defend their loved ones?
Great question again. Thank you. The first thing I would say that we have to have a better understanding of courage and cowardice. In truth, courage and cowardice is the same energy. It's the same energy. What do I mean? I mean that the energy, if you look at a number line, you know, when we look at the number line, there is a positive, meaning from 0 to the right is going to be positive. But if you understand that if you go back to that 0 and go left, you now got negative.
Right.
It's the same line.
Right.
It's the same line of energy. The question is, how do you respond? Which direction do you go? Do you try to run when you hear something, or do you turn to it? In truth, I remember earlier on, you know, having that question, because when you get the butterflies in your stomach, you know, I thought that may have been some cowardice, and being a young martial artist and whatnot, I had my teacher, Dr. Moses Powell. He was at a tournament with me, and these were in the early days of my tournament competition, and I, you know, that feeling came up, and he was around in the area where I was about to fight, you know, just getting ready, and I felt it, and I said, you know what, I hate the fact that there may be some cowardice in me and I'm feeling these butterflies. So I told Doc, I said, Master Musa, I got a question. I need to ask you a question. And he saw that I was serious and he leaned forward in his seat because he was leaning back against the wall. And he leaned forward and he said, what's going on? What's happening? I said, well, you know, I just want to know what this is because I'm getting these butterflies just before fighting. And soon as a few hits, excuse me, as soon as a few licks are passed, you know, it's gone. But, you know, initial piece, you know, he said, when he got the question, he's, in my situation, he leaned back, he said, oh, don't worry about that. He said, that's just not knowing what the outcome is going to be. See, that strengthened me because it wasn't that I was afraid, it was just not knowing what the outcome was going to be. So when you find yourself in a situation, the question is, are you trying to run away before you even understand what's happening? Or are you ready to defend your life immediately? So it's still a determination, but what makes you coward is that you are running away. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of, in defense of yourself, you don't have to fight all the way through. You have to stop the aggression. So as I teach women and youth that I'm gonna teach you something to do that's gonna give you an opportunity to get away. But I'm not gonna tell you to just run away because they may have a gun. They may, who knows what it is. You need to do something. If they're on you, you gotta do something, all right? Now, the something that young lady that was at the bus stop was move. That's a courageous, that's not running away. That's repositioning yourself.
Right.
Now, if they start running after you, now turn and battle. And in that battle, you now have shown that you are not willing to just give your life because the numbers, the odds are against you. And in fact, when you show that, that's when the odds being the odds being against you, if they are greater odds, that's when you turn the table of someone who feels that they are greater than you. If my little young brother had the knowledge when it first started to hit somebody in the throat, to throw a kick in the groin, it would not have been the same scenario. There would have been a change. Or, you know, I don't, you know, there's various situations, you know, we're talking about someone's life and I don't want to make it seem light. It's not light. It's not the same situation or that situation that's on all that will face us. If we had to face it, we don't know what we would do. But the question is, do you practice to not be cowardly, to not give in? Because it wasn't about that young brother being a coward. It's not about that. That's just giving the power to your enemy. They were enemies of our young brother. The women that were taken, and they gave the opportunity for this law enforcement officer to do what he did to them. This is not the first time that a law enforcement officer has done the exact same thing. It's happened here in the States. It's happening in other places. The question is, they don't believe the outcome or what from that, what would happen to them from there. See, if those things change and people changed their modus operandi and started seeing differently, things would change.
Fantastic. So, and I love the way you put that. It's such a wonderful illustration of how we can move forward. And to yourself, Brother Calvin, you know, I remember when I was a young boy, maybe about 4, And little dude, you know, we were the same size and weight and everything, but I just knew that I could absolutely choke the life out of him, right? And, you know, and he wanted to have a little tussle. We're at nursery, okay? So I learned this lesson very young. I was about 4, and we were at nursery, but he had 3 brothers. And at the time, I had my mother coming to pick me up because my brothers never went to the same nursery, you know? And I thought about the consequences of choking him, that it will lead to his 3 brothers, you know, doing me in. So because I considered the consequence of his 3 brothers, I allowed him to pin me down and get the victory. We were only 4, so there was no blood, there were no guns. There were no knives. It was just, you know, 4-year-olds tossing. But from that day, you know, I realized, do not consider the consequences. If it's going to happen, let it happen. But if you're in a bind, you know, handle the bind and deal with the consequences later. How important is it for us to not bombard our mind with what may happen to us if we defend our lives? Because that's a real question sometimes, right?
That is absolutely a real question. And, you know, those consequences, and I have to say with Grandmaster just said when he broke down, and I've heard him talk about that, but it's a key part to the understanding when he talked about cowardice and courage being along the same vein. And when you talk about consequences, a person can only consider the consequence if a consequence has been put before them before, right? And for lack of a better term, that's called conditioning. And sometimes the consequence, you didn't have to face the consequence. You could have seen someone else face the consequence. And now it's a part of your own psyche to where you or we self-check ourselves. Because, and I've heard Grandmaster say this before when he's teaching us and he catches us thinking and analyzing too much. And he says, stop thinking too much. Now, with that being said, when you're talking about that being controlled or considering the consequence, well, we've heard it before that fear is bred into us. It's not something that naturally comes to us. But when you remove a person from who they really are, you're able to control them with fear. That's why you have these little 5-foot-some-odd people handling lions and bears, you know, because they've removed the natural concept of what that thing is. And through a series of presenting consequences, they're able to control it. Now, with that being said, I think one of the things, especially to your earlier question, one of the things that naturally counters when you're talking about self-defense of yourself and others, the 2 things I believe that naturally counter the consideration of those consequences is, number 1, being in true connection with who you really are, your actual nature, the way Allah designed you, number 1. Number 2, it sounds crazy, but having proper love of yourself and having the proper love of those around you, your loved ones. You know, you can take my beautiful wife just gave birth a little bit over a week ago with our son.
Congratulations.
And thank you, sir. And one of the things you will realize about new mothers, they may not have ever been to a martial arts class, but if you threaten that baby, the love that that mother has from that baby will terrify the largest person. And so when you consider, number 1, making sure you have a true concept, a true knowledge of yourself, knowing who you are, because that's one of the ways that people can make you consider those consequences or control you through fear. And number 2, having a proper love for yourself and your people. You don't have to contemplate when something that you love is threatened. you don't contemplate consequences.
Right.
You go right into action because it's natural to do so.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my feeling on that.
Right. So I was blessed to be, I was in the Emirates a couple of weeks ago, and a dear friend of mine who was hosting me in Dubai, he said, I'm going to take you to an animal, a private zoo. So we went to a zoo, and it's owned by one of his colleagues, and he had a couple of lions in a cage. He had a leopard, and he was saying, come, Hakeem, like, come and stroke the leopard. So naturally, I'm like, there's some other things we could be doing right now. You know? But this man went into the lion's cage and chained up the lion and brought him out for me to stroke. And I was like, is this really necessary, Hakeem? So again, in neutralizing fear, because that was a whole different realm for me, you know, going close to a leopard and a lion. And these people have leopards and lions now for pets, you know. So I say all of that to say, and in line with what's been said, you know, how important is it to frequently test your fear status? And what are ways and means, Grandmaster, that we can check our fear status to ensure that we're on point?
Another excellent question. Those are things that I have done to myself, just looking, because you never know. You don't know what's really in you, you know? And
right.
Give everyone something to think about.
Right.
Startled. I you know, if I'm walking in the street, I want to know when I'm not ready for it is when you have to, you know, really look at it. And something happens and you know, you get that feeling that surges through your body real quickly. Do you move in the direction that is away to try to gain a little bit? You're going to have the same feeling now. Or do you turn toward it quickly? You know, knowing that it could be something dangerous. That's how I was identifying things for me. So it made me, in doing that, it made me constantly look for that kind of energy coming at me, that I would always begin to turn toward it. Don't turn away from it, turn toward it. So that made me to feel better about certain things, because it's not when you're thinking about it. See, that's not the deal. See, it's when you are threatened, and quickly threatened, do you act the way you really will act in a real live situation. I want to go back just a little bit to that lion and that leopard and all of that. You know, we see the animal itself, but the spirit of the animal is what we are afraid of. That's why some of our own people, or different people in different areas, you'll have someone that is of the same hue of skin tone, afraid of this other one who is the same skin tone, but they have a different spirit, and they may be from a different neighborhood. So they look at it like petting a lion.
Right.
You know, so again, it's coming back to our mind now, how we think, you see, because how we think is going to reflect on how we act, what we do. See, so we have to understand that, you know, we should not fear, the better thing is to get some understanding. Is he threatening me? Is he threatening me? Not is he threatening?
Yeah.
You know, be someone who has a ferocious look, but he is a teddy bear.
Right.
Big, tall persons. They're big and they're tall. They have been made to believe that everyone should respond to them a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
So you find, you know, someone big and tall, they will act that way, but they may not even have the skill set to back up that. You'll find security personnel, big security personnel, they really were hired because of their size, not because of their skill.
Right. Right.
I know I'm all over another area, you know, but that's what, you know, I wanted to touch on. If I kind of forgot a little bit of what you were saying and I wanted to touch it, but you let me know.
And you brought back to my remembrance, because I said to the brother when we were going to the zoo, you know, I'm like, if you got a gun, brother, because I don't mind, but somebody has to have a gun.
Right.
Because if this thing starts going wrong, you know, like someone's got to be able to put this thing down, you know. And they were insistent that, you know, we didn't need. And it was interesting, dear brother, because I knew once I had entered into the gate of the zoo, I had to take a picture with the leopard and the lion. They weren't gonna. My reputation was on the line here, and we thank God that we were able to survive the day and get the pictures. And I juxtapositioned that with when me and a couple of my brothers, Lionel and Colin, we were in the Gambia, and they have this crocodile farm. And apparently, you know, you're supposed to pay the people and go and take a picture with the crocodile. Now, when I was in Gambia, it was a different thing. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I don't know about these damn crocodiles. That's a picture I don't need. So again, you know, in just gauging your fear level and being able to transfer fear. So someone's trying to intimidate you, you know, and how do you reverse that process? And I want to come back to something, Grandmaster, you said earlier in regards to teaching your female students skills to help them to get out of particular situations they may find themselves. And Sister Sylvina, Sister Tara, I'm going to bring you in after this question because I know you're chomping at the bit because you want to ask some questions, right? And you're like, oh, what did this man here? It doesn't come. I'm going to bring you in, man. Like, don't worry yourself.
All right.
So, Grandmaster, in regards to the women, and I once heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say, you know, that if a man wants to take from you as a woman that which you do not want to give him, kill him.
Kill him.
Just kill him. And when I heard one of my sisters who was speaking ahead of me one day, and she was just speaking, and she reiterated this, and the passion in which she said it in, it just sounded so good coming out of her mouth, like just kill him. But she didn't say it in a manner that was in any way, shape, or form just, you know, just gimmickry and just repeating what he said. I could feel in her heart that she meant what she said it. So she weren't just repeating, she was adding to his conviction. So how can a woman learn to be in a position where she knows that regardless of the situation, that if somebody intends evil, that it will not go down like that. It just ain't going down like that whilst I've got life in me. help us with how you train the women's mind and the kind of skills you equip them with.
Yes, sir.
Because that's the first thing that we have to strengthen like a muscle. You have to strengthen their mind, the women and children, everyone's mind. You have to strengthen it, but particularly when it comes to the female, because the female feels less physically strong than the male. And the male sees the female as being physically less strong than himself. Now, that doesn't really mean, and it doesn't have to be the truth. That's just how they see it and how they feel. That's in their mind. They have been conditioned to believe that the woman is less capable of defending herself. Now, I speak about that to the sisters, to the women, when I'm teaching them, that they have a great opportunity, because shock and catching someone by surprise is greater than catching them with outside of surprise and even being good and being stronger than them. No, being surprised. Now, what is the surprise here? It is one who believes. You understand that, first of all, you condition yourself to be prepared for a situation, so you use what someone's perception of you is. See, so you gotta, one, believe in yourself. We gotta strengthen the woman's belief in herself to be able to defend against the man. And then when we help strengthen that part of their thinking, then we give them something to enhance and make them know that they can, because, you know, we give them men to actually perform it on. So with they become strengthened to be able to do it. But that's the big part. The biggest part is their mind, and they have to know that they can, and then they will. If I will do this, I will save my child. You know, if you ask them without the difficulty or the child being in danger, they're not going to tear any doors off of a car. But if they're in danger, their energy, their spirit goes into that ability to rip a door off of a car.
Yeah.
To save a child from burning in a vehicle. You see, so safety is the same. Safety, your life is the same. You have to be able to rip the doors off of the vehicle, but the door is the individual who is attacking you.
Right.
That you deserve to live. Do you feel that you deserve to allow him to do what he desires? So if you don't feel that, then you got to act in such a way that becomes the Lion Unchained.
Right.
You start. Even the one brother, Minister Hakeem, that brought him there, if that lion observed any of his nature, the tamer would not feel secure any longer. You see, so yes, will you succumb to the conditioning that Sensei Calvin mentioned, that you have been conditioned to be a certain way, or will you open yourself up to your nature and allow your nature to be exposed to the individual who is attacking you, who once they see your nature, they will get out of the cage?
Fantastic. So tell me then, you know, because inadvertently then, we can sometimes weaken our loved ones. So even the way how parents discipline their children and the way how parents even speak to their children, are we not sometimes even, you know, inculcating this cowardice, this weakness by the way how we discipline.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is why we're taught to not beat our children when we're angry.
Right.
See, we do it when we're angry. We do it with a downward action. Our spirit is condemnation and condemning and whatnot. You see, so that's what happens when you don't have, when you're not in control of your attitude and your spirit. So you want to be, you want to give it based on mathematics. Well,
Right.
this, so you deserve this, and now, and let me give you what you need. Okay.
What you earned.
So, you know, but yes, it is something we have to help the woman really get to the point that they see and know, no, not just see, but they know that they have power of life and death in their.
So tell me, Grandmaster and Sensei Calvin, tell me, what is then the responsibility of us as men in regards to the providing of the requisite facilities to ensure that our women and our children can access the requisite and necessary tools that they need to be empowered?
Excellent. Please, Cal.
Yes, sir. Well, you know, men, of course, we have a responsibility overall of protection. We have a responsibility overall of providing and maintaining. And one of the things that, you know, being an instructor under Grandmaster Abdul Aziz Muhammad, one of the things that I've come to embrace when we're talking about protection, self-defense, that it can't be something that is looked at as a pastime. You know, sometimes people bring their children to me and they say things like, I want him to have something to do. And that is fine. That is absolutely fine. Or they'll bring their daughters and say, you know, they just got too much time on their hands. And that's fine. But as Grandmaster had mentioned about the mindset, we have to present to our families. I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say, teach the babies how to fight, teach them how to throw a bottle. We have to present to our families, it has to be embraced upon our families that defending ourselves is a part of our lifestyle. Right. It's not an option. It's not a pastime. It's not something that you do, you know, because you want to lose weight or anything like that. All of those things are great and they're good to get you started, but it has to be embraced as a lifestyle. When you mention men, and you talked about before cowardice and how we breed that thing into us. Being a provider, being a protector is a part of the defense of our family. And so as men, if we fail at the thing that is natural to what is needed for a family or what is needed for our loved ones, then we are setting the tone as to what place protection takes in our lifestyle. And once we do that, we diminish, you know, a lot of times, you know, in the class, I've met people who have never been in an actual fight.
Right.
They've never been presented with the danger. They never even had to think in terms of self-defense because that reality has never been placed before them. But I believe as men, we have to set that tone that what we're building as a family, you know, whether we have siblings, we have children, we have our wives and our extended family, what we are building is so precious that it must be protected and we are the ones to protect it. That mindset trickles down to the family. It trickles down to the wife, it trickles down to the children. And then when we get to that point, we are responsible for setting the tone that to defend ourselves. Let me put it like this, you know, something Grandmaster said earlier when he talked about cowardice and we talked about the butterflies. There's this game we used to play when we were younger that if you flinch at somebody and they blink, we are taught that they were afraid of you. Right? Oh, you're afraid, I got you shook, or whatever the case is. But in reality, that flinch is the body's natural response to want to defend, but we haven't deposited the skill set in it to defend yet. So all you have is this. But when you start to set that tone, you know, even I remember my father, I got into a fight as a young man at school, and I got my tooth knocked out. And that night, my father brought me home and he taught me how to jab. That's all he taught me was a jab. And he made me go back to school. And I beat that brother down with a jab, just that one tool that I had. Now, I got suspended from school and my father denied all culpability, but that's another story. However, that's the type of tone that we as fathers have to set, that this thing that we are building called family and this thing that we are building called community. Not only are we building that, but it calls for everyone to learn how to defend what we are building. And so we're responsible to provide the environment, to start giving the tool set. I heard Mama Aziza, Grandmaster's wife, once say, when she was talking about training, she said, my husband is Grandmaster Abdul Aziz Muhammad. That's the best protector you can have besides Allah. She said, but he's not with me 24/7.
Right.
So if I'm out there and maybe I'm going to the grocery store and something happens, I don't have time to call him. I have to use the tool sets that I've been working on. And so without belaboring the point, that's my thought on, as men, we have that responsibility to set the tone and the culture as a lifestyle that everybody has to defend what we build.
Right. And before I bring in the Grandmaster, you remind me of something that my mother said to me. My mother said to me, look, we Jamaican people don't fight fear. She said, anybody, and I won't use the word she said, but if anybody, she said, the first thing me look for, she calls me Larry. The first thing we look for, Larry, is our weapon to lick them in them raws.
That's right.
So her mindset is, once you cross the line, I'm disabling you from this point henceforth. I'm not going to hurt my hands. I'm going to pick, and as a woman, you know, my mom fights. She used to anyway. She used to be a fighter, you know, based upon the part of Jamaica she came from, the real rough upbringings. You have to fight and carry your own. But she brought that same spirit to London. And some of the women who she knew didn't want to go shopping with her because if people crossed her, she would start looking and her friends would know what they I
love it.
And it was just so wonderful to hear her story. But the point is that it reminds me, you know, of when we watch movies and we see people trying to escape from prison and they'll grab one hostage and there's 20 people coming and they know as long as I've got this one, you know, these are his colleagues, but, you know, he's my shield to get out of danger. And it goes back to what you were saying, you know, they will use the shield, get somewhere, and then jump in a car and drive off and they're gone. So there's no cowardice there. Their minds formulated a route to which they could escape those who were trying to do them harm. So please, Grandmaster, on that same point that we were discussing in regards to us as males, our responsibility in regards to ensuring that the environment is produced and structured that our women can learn and our children can learn the requisite skills to defend themselves, particularly in our absence.
Thank you. I want to go to the negative side of what men do to not strengthen the environment when it comes to women, even children from time to time. You know, sometimes men want to already be who they should be, the protector.
Right.
What happens is when a woman desires to train, many times the male can get in the way of their, because they feel that they're losing their position in terms of being able to defend themselves. So I've had them stop their wife from training because they are not intending on doing any training themselves. And they don't want for their wife to gain what they don't have, or anyone who is teaching to take on a position, possible position of being someone that they look up to. So I'm saying this is a negative thing that should not, if you love, and we all should love the women in our life, our daughters, our wife, our, you know, all of the women, we should, and we want them to get what we do not have. It's like none of us have the knowledge to deal with everything. So whatever we don't have, we want to get it to our family so that they can have what is needed to defend themselves. So I say that because I want the men that are in your audience not to have any trepidation or concern as it relates to that, unless you have been someone who have been beating up on your wife and you want her to learn how to defend herself so she won't use it on you. If that's then
you should be scared
to overcome any dilemma that she may find herself in. So it is important that we create that. I'll go this direction also. The martial arts, when it comes to defending itself, is a male-dominated area. And what happens, and I'm going to talk to some of the instructors that are here that may be listening or may listen at some point in time, that yes, we want to make sure that the women are given what is necessary to overcome anyone that attempts to assault her. You want to give her the spirit, the energy, the focus, and the knowledge to be able to overcome any enemy that attempts to do anything to her, obstruct her, to take her to, or take whatever they desire up from her. So, but we have the responsibility in our class structure to make it as open and easy for them, because it is it's a male dominated thing. And what we find is many women do not stay.
Yes, sir.
So we have to help them to stay so that we can get across to them what we need for them to save their lives. So there is a way to teach women that's not the same as teaching a man.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And I want to say that to everyone that is out there that may, you may just be exposed to someone who does, who is teaching. That may need to be a conversation.
Yes, sir.
Now, you can't necessarily change everyone, but you have to be ready to help them to defend themselves. And those of us that are men, we need to help women defend themselves against those of us that would be sisters also. Listen, when you take on a position of responsibility and someone looks up to you, you gain the trust in people, men, women, and children, and the trust that we are given by those who are under us. We have to make sure that we maintain their trust by doing what is right between for our students. So there's much that go along with that, and I have been given the responsibility to make sure that those who are teaching the sisters in the nation, that they are the kind of instructors that's not just good in their instruction, but they're good in their character, so that they don't assault them in a way that's, not necessarily direct. So there's a way of handling sisters.
Yes, sir.
As well. I just wanted to touch that a little bit, Brother Minister.
Thank you, sir. And I will not be forgiven unless I allow my co-hosts to ask at least one question each. So Sister Tara and Sister Sylvina, would you like to engage our special guest this evening before we conclude proceedings this evening?
Go ahead, sister.
Okay, I just had one question with regard to females or sisters on the call also. What are I know you mentioned cues as in like your own, really your intuition and a feeling that you may get. And we all have those, but sometimes we do ignore them. I'm aware of that, but I just want to know if you could point out a few cues that women can, be on the lookout for that may, show that there's an imminent attack or something may be about to happen. Because I understand everyone is kind of preoccupied with their phones, technology, and really not in tune with themselves, or have self-awareness. So what are some cues that you can point out that we can share with the audience?
Well, thank you, my sister, for that. It's very important, though, that we gain a better understanding and a better ear. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan told me this was years ago. It was a situation that we were traveling to one of the pioneers. It was Queen Mother Moore that was in New York, and she was upstate. She had gotten some land, and the minister was going to speak at this location. And in the beginning, this is in the 80s. In the beginning of this situation, the way things were going, the driving was helter-skelter. It was just not hitting the way it should have, and we were at a location gassing up, and while we were gassing up, I blurted out because I felt like it. But so what I blurted out was, I really don't think the minister should go because the way we've been moving, it seems like it's a sign. And when I said it, the sister, there was a sister who was a captain in Newark at the time. And she said to me, and she responded, and it was with a serious tone, "You need to let the minister know, brother, because the minister said, if you ever feel like that, you need to let him know." And I was like, oh my God, I really didn't want to do that. Now you're thinking about, and, may think that I just don't want to go, and, all of that. So I'm banging myself with that. So I really don't say anything right away. But what happens is we start traveling, we go about 10, 15 miles, 20 miles, and for some reason, the vehicle pulls over. We come out of our vehicle, I'm in the lead vehicle, come out of the vehicles, we're standing and we're watching because we're on security. And I said, I got to go and say it. And I go over, and Brother At that time, it was Brother Linward, Brother Minister Kareem, go over, and he's on the passenger side of the vehicle in the back with the minister of the limo. And I just say it, I can't even see the minister, but I just say it when he opens up the window. I say that, I don't believe that the minister should go due to all of the issues that were going on with us driving and so forth. Okay, we get in the vehicles and we take off again. Okay, we're moving another 15, 20 miles. The vehicle goes over to the side. We get out again. Minister Kareem at that time comes. He gets out the vehicle and calls me. I said, oh, I'm going to get it now. And the minister had me to sit in the vehicle in the back. Minister Kareem gets out, and the minister goes to say to me that, thank you for, he thanked me for saying it. And he says that Allah gives everyone warnings. He gives everyone a warning. And, there were some other things that were said, but he says, you're going to go now. You're going to continue. And he had another brother to actually speak. All right, let's move past that so that we can understand that the warnings are real. I really checked with the minister to even find out if I shared this with them before. When we get to the location, the brother is speaking. I'm on the stage with them. There are two brothers on the lower portion. And as I'm looking out into this field that was a rectangular field with wooded trees that were, a wooded area all around the outer side, except for the back behind us, which was the house, that there was a white individual that crossed the path or the corner of that field, with what looked like to be a rifle bag. Wow. So I'm waiting trying to get someone's attention because I want to get to it. By the time I get someone's attention, I move out and I go out there and I could not find anyone. I couldn't find him. I searched for him. So it was my belief. It is my belief that there was intention that was set, but the minister heard that he understood the warning. And I believe that I was able to see that the warning was real. So that could have been a situation, and there has been many in my knowledge, and then also my belief that has happened, that the minister has been able to avoid the devil's or enemy's plan to do anything to him. So anyway, all of that is being said so that I don't want to skirt over that and say, okay, well, look at this. See, because if we're not looking for these things, we're not going to even see the actions that are going to present itself as a warning. So let me just start off, just lay that out. So let me just say, if you find that you are traveling and I want to talk about or make sure that you all are understanding, do not park your vehicles facing in. When you park your vehicles, no matter if you're in a rush or not, make sure you park your vehicle backing up into an area so you have a clear of sight view when you are driving out of any parking lot. Make sure that you do not put yourself in a position, because there are those who have, one of the things that have happened in those kind of situations is that when you are turning around, you're getting ready to back out, you're not always looking like you should, and someone can walk right in your path and seem like they were hit by your vehicle. And now you get out of your vehicle, now you expose yourself, them and their allies as well. So you want to park back in to any parking space so that you can leave directly out without stopping, seeing which direction you're going in, and not having to do that broken K, to back out, pivot out, go back forward. Stop there, and you got to be ready for that kind of situation. So you have that as one thing. You gotta also watch, you know, we do a lot of shaking of hands. Men will give you their hand to shake. I suggest you give a beautiful look and not accept the hand, because you got to know that you now give yourself to someone that may have that intention. So it's best that you just, you know, touch your heart. You know what I'm saying? Oh, how are you? You know what I mean? Whatever it is that you need to do that doesn't make you look like, no, I'm not shaking your hand. No, it doesn't have to be that way. You can have it doesn't look, and they'll understand. They're not going to take your hand. So that's one thing. All right. Certain comments. Don't worry. Sometimes when men make comments, of course, the men are making comments to get a response. When you don't give a response, they may want to be undignified. Do not give way to that. So that's just a few things that I would give to you, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Perfect sense. Sister Silvina, final question.
Okay, thank you. Brother Abdulaziz, I remember training with you once, one early morning, Savior's Day in Detroit. Fond memory. I won't go into it now as we're running short time, but it's wonderful to see you again. One of the questions I wanted to pose was, because we're in society that encourages you to control, self-control. If you defend beyond the force that the person attacked you with, you may be liable for all these kind of things. So we kind of in a society where we're taught constraint. And I wanted to know what your perspective was on whether it's necessary for us to allow ourselves to, be in an environment where we can express that aggression and, show ourselves what we're capable of, rather than leaving it to, as brother says, some of us may not have been in a physical altercation before. So you actually don't know how you would handle yourself. So I wanted to know if there's any merit in that, in actually, as I said, just being able to express yourself in a physical kind of way, and expressing that aggression, rather than waiting for it to happen and not knowing what you're capable of.
Yes. Well, when we go to school, normally school is either for us to get employed and work for someone, or to build our own business. I would hope the latter. But in school, you are taught various, you're given tools for what it is that you're going after. So you want to learn in an environment that helps you to be able to express yourself in that way. Now that's what, training. So you have to go to a class so that you can express yourself in that way. The only thing that I want us to be concerned with, because, some women now, they're not taking much, in any environment, you say something wrong, we're going to get back with you, that you talk to me in that manner. Now, we want to make sure constraint and control.
Yes.
See, control is the better term that I would like to say. That control is because you are controlling yourself, while constraint is based on somebody else's view or how they have set up for you to be, how they have our minds and whatnot. So, no, we want to maintain or establish the control. So I want to make sure that we as men and women specifically, do not feel threatened or troubled where you have to verbally lose control to express yourself. you have to know when to allow that control that you have
Right.
be lowered or heightened, I should say heightened. See, so depending upon that, see, because really, when somebody's trying to set you off and you don't get set off, they get set off even more.
Right, yes.
So your control is actually better.
Yeah.
Excuse me, is better than losing the control. Maintain, because when it's time for you to use it, they have not gained your power. They don't know your power. They don't know that you act out. All you're showing them is that you're clear. And there's something different about this woman here. Something different. She's not responding to the stimuli that I'm giving her. So that when he does something and he now loses his position of being civil, you now show him what true control is. Does it make sense that
Perfect sense. Thank you.
So pause yourself and control yourself. No broco. and what's so important, Grandmaster, is the pearls of wisdom that you're giving us today. You know, it's only when we go back over this short video and this recording will much of what you've said actually land, because what you've been saying to us this evening is so loaded that it's going to take a second and a third, you know, view and listen. And we are so indebted to you and Sensei Calvin for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule to share these wonderful tools, these wonderful principles that we have been blessed to receive this evening. We want to respect your time. We know we've held you 13 minutes over the time that, you know, we originally stated, and through your graciousness, you have engaged us, and we are very, very thankful. So Spiritual Injection, are you thankful for the Grandmaster and Sensei Calvin being on our call this evening?
Yes, sir.
Definitely.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, brothers.
Blessings, blessings.
Grandmaster.
Wonderful, wonderful,
Thank you
wonderful.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just before we close, Grandmaster and Sensei Calvin, would you please leave us with some comments and some closing remarks?
Well, Calvin, would you like to start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And I'll be really brief. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but one of the things that I wanted to also issue with the sisters in particular, there were some great suggestions in the comments about watching your surroundings, headphones, and things of that nature, and all of those who should be taken into consideration when you're talking about cues. In this day of modern technology, especially when you get into sex trafficking and human trafficking, often your first counter or contact of aggression is not a man. It's quite often a woman who is handling you and grooming you and trying to move you into a position of vulnerability where worse things will happen. So as Grandmaster said about your interactions, being aware of strangers, it's men and women you have to be on the guard, on the lookout for, because you may engage a woman and you may feel comfortable with her and drop your guards, and then they can move you into a situation where all of your vulnerabilities are taken advantage of. And the last point I got from Steve Muhammad, Sabir Muhammad, I say this all the time, and it is about training, and I can't say it enough. And he said this at a national training. He said that in a crisis situation, all that you can fall back on is what you've trained for. And if you have not trained for anything, you have nothing to fall back on. And so I'll leave it at that, and I'm anxiously awaiting to hear from Grandmaster.
Yes, sir. Well, I would just say this. First of all, thank you to everyone. I such a great spirit on this podcast, man. I got to, get on here more often so I can get injection.
Come on now, anytime, brother. Beautiful.
I would say, to whom much is given, much is required. So we've been given the life that we have. We are required now, not suggested, we are required to protect the life that we have, as well as our families' lives. So if you do not move in the direction to prepare yourself for it, to be able to protect, then you have to know that you're moving in the direction to make sure that the enemy, whoever is against you, will be successful.
Yeah.
So either you're moving in the positive, toward the positive numbers, or you're moving toward the negative. So you're either being courageous in challenging whatever you have as an issue, or you are being proactive to make sure that your opponent, who is going to confront you, is going to be successful. And I'll leave you with that.
And we thank you for that wisdom, Grand Master. Thank you for your time. Thank you for a wonderful evening and a very, very empowering evening at that. So please, Spiritual Injection, show your love, your appreciation for our Grand Master and Assistant Supreme Captain of the Nation of Islam, Abdul Aziz Muhammad, and Sensei Calvin Muhammad. Thank you both.
Thank you both, brother.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. On now.
Thank you, Grandmaster.
Thank you, Grandmaster.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Grandmaster. Thank you, Grandmaster.
Thank you.
So over to you. Go ahead, Grandmaster.
I look forward to inshallah, perhaps in this year somewhere we can have a meeting in your part of the woods.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, that would be awesome.
That would be. Many requests for that.
So those of you who are on the line, we are planning a seminar, a martial arts seminar this year in the summer, where we will be flying over the Grand Master and hopefully Sensei Calvin to the United Kingdom with others. And we will put on a weekend of training and preparation to all what you've heard orally this evening. In the next 3 to 4 to 6 months, you'll have the opportunity to embrace Grandmaster Abdul Aziz and Sensei Calvin Muhammad and others here in the United Kingdom. So those of you who are in Belgium, those of you who are in the UAE, those of you who are in Holland and France, start preparing yourself, because we're going to have, the conference of conferences here in the UK, the seminar of seminars here in the United Kingdom. But first and foremost,
let's go.
Is that what you want, audience?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And nothing less.
Okay, so let's prepare for the retreat of retreats. So thank you, Grandmaster. We will be in touch with the dates and the itinerary and schedules. And let's bring this great national training, this great training to the United Kingdom and to Europe.